Hello again and welcome to the Talking Locs podcast. My name is Ade Balogun of Locitude. Today I would be discussing sister locks versus traditional locks. But first, I would like to dedicate this episode to Helni Hamman. She was one of our customers who passed away on the 31st of December 2020, and I just got to hear about it from her very good friend who introduced her to the Locitude studio, Obi Ifejika. The feedback I got was heartwarming and at the same time gave me so many goosebumps, and I felt like it would just be appropriate to dedicate this episode to Helni. Obi told me about how Locitude was one of the places Helni used to look forward to come to, and that it was one of the places she had the best times in terms of social activity and getting along with our staff. And she called me to tell me thank you for setting up Locitude and how important it was for someone like Helni. All of this has been very emotional for me, and I just I'm not even very sure what to do with the information, but say Helni, from all of us at Locitude, we know that you would rest in peace and in power, and our thoughts are with your family. So getting right into it, you know how I like to organize my thoughts. I think we should start out with definition, and then we can start out with pros and cons of both sister locks and traditional locks, and then that way you can be the judge of which type of locks wins. So, what are traditional locks? Traditional locks are usually any type of locks that are not free-form locks and are not really tiny locks, which you can describe as micro locks and sister locks. While sister locks are a trademarked type of locks, you actually need a specialist to get them done, and they are really, really tiny locks, usually starting from about 400 strands and above. A lot of people mistaking sister locks for micro locks or think that they are one and the same thing. They're pretty much very similar. The sister locks, besides it requiring a specialist who has been trained particularly for that reason, there is a grid system that is part of the training that you must follow for your locks to be termed sister locks specifically. However, but with micro locks, that's basically tiny locks that doesn't require somebody who has been specially trained, and there's no limit as to how tiny or how big this is. Micro locks are usually start from about 250 upwards as well. So but today we're going to be specifically discussing sister locks versus traditional locks. For some more context, traditional locks can be anywhere from 40 strands of locks to about 200 to 220 strands of locks. The service we provide at Locitude usually is around traditional locks, and you could go from small, medium, or large locks. So with like small traditional locks, you might have up to like 200 locks. I have medium sized locks, and I have about 148 strands of locks. And then if you wanted them large, you could have up to like 90 30 20 strands of locks, and they would still be traditional locks. Another thing you should note is that you can't necessarily go by number of locks to determine the size of your traditional locks, because depending on the density of your hair, someone could have really dense hair and have medium locks and have 200 strands of locks. So that's some context, and depending on what you want, you kind of need to be specific, and your loctician can help with what you should get. So a couple of things to consider when you're trying to choose if you should go for sister locks or traditional locks. For me, it's two big things. It's time and it's money. With traditional locks, you could actually get away with not doing much to your hair or taking care of your hair by yourself without too much stress. With the traditional locks, you could use any of the locking methods that I explained in the episode that kind of covered locking methods. So you could start out with the comb coils, continue on with palm rolling, choose to interlock, choose to crochet it if you want, and in some cases actually choose to continue it by free forming. However, with sister locks, you kind of have to get them retightened all the time. And when I say all the time, I believe every 4 to 6 weeks, so that your hair doesn't mat underneath and you don't ruin your locks. So it's a little bit more difficult for you to get away with doing just anything to your sister locks. And the method is also, like I said, bespoke, requires a consultant, but is usually a form of interlocking. So you cannot palm roll sister locks, or you cannot crochet sister locks. So speaking specifically to the time that it takes, I've had cases whereby it can take up to 3 days for sister locks to be installed, so that it's installed properly. But on the average, you're looking at an entire day, like maybe 18 hours to get your sister locks installed the first time, depending on the length of your hair. Retightening can take anywhere from 6 hours to 12 hours, depending on how slow the person who is doing it is, or how many locks that you have. Whilst with traditional locks, the first time you do it, on the average, you can do it anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. And then for us at Locitude, our appointment, which is oftentimes palm rolling, will take you about an hour and a half, and maybe interlocking takes a little bit more time depending on how many strands of locks the person has, but you'll be looking at maybe 3 hours maximum, which includes like washing your hair and styling your hair. So if you do not have a lot of time to dedicate to your hair every 4 to 6 weeks, you may want to consider a different type of locks. But if you do have that time, then sure, why not? It is also important to note that sister locks are actually really, really beautiful, and for anything that takes as much time to get done, you must also believe that it does cost a lot of money, and you cannot charge the same that you would charge for traditional locks for sister locks, because basically time is money. The sister locks was trademarked in the US, and I know it starts at about $500, which is, if you approximate the naira at almost 500 naira these days, that's almost about 250k to start your locks. And every time you're retightening, you might be looking at about $100, which is about maybe 50k thereabouts. Whilst with traditional locks, it depends on where you go, but you are looking at anywhere from 1,000 naira if you're going to somewhere really, really cheap, to maybe 10k if you're using somewhere a bit more upscale to retighten your hair. But you can see that there's a big difference in what it may cost or what it will cost, and sister locks are definitely more expensive. You must also note that yes, there are some people who are literally gangster who retighten their sister locks themselves. So it is not impossible. Nothing is impossible. So if you are considering that, you might want to take a class, or know how you can get to help yourself by doing your hair yourself to save some money if you do have the time. So those are the things I can recall right now, and I'm really short on time. The last episode was twice the time, but I didn't want to break it up into 2 because I know I didn't want to do more than 7 episodes for this mini series. So there you have it. I want to say a very big thank you very much. The feedback has been amazing. I know more people will get to hear this in the future, and for those of you who are listening in the future, please don't forget to give us some feedback by email, on social media. We'll be here. I guess it would be nice to drop the email at this point. It is info@locitude.com. That's INFO at Locitude. Locitude has an hyphen between loc and etude, so I'll spell that quickly. LOC hyphen ITUDE.com. So lastly, do let us know how you would like this podcast to continue. We would be expecting your feedback, and we'll see. Maybe we should have one every week, or maybe once a month. What would you like to listen to? What would you like to hear? We'll be happy to put out as much information as we can. So thank you so much. I have enjoyed producing this mini series, and don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, and follow us on social media. We are Locitude, LOCITUDE, and take care. Hope to talk to you again in the future. Bye.